Nigeria's gross domestic product, GDP, grew by 2.25% year-on-year in real terms in the third quarter of the year, representing a 1.78% decline compared to 4.0% growth rate in the Q3 2021, National Bureau of Statistics said yesterday. The reduction in growth was attributed to the base effect of the recession and the challenging economic condition which have impeded productive activities in the country. Growth also decreased by 1.29% when compared to the 3.54% growth rate recorded in the preceding quarter. According to the report, which was released by the statistical agency, the NBS, however, noted that quarter-on-quarter real GDP growth was at 9.68% in the third quarter, reflecting a higher economic activity than the preceding quarter. In the quarter under review, aggregate GDP stood at 52.26 trillion in nominal terms, higher than 45.11 trillion recorded in Q3 2021, and indicated a year-on-year nominal growth of 15.8%. To help us look at the issue today, we have Isaac Adejumo. He's the head of investment, Skyview Capital, a stockbroking and asset management firm. Good morning, Isaac. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, good morning.
Yes,
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, the GDP growth slowed in the third quarter of the year. What do you think of this?
Well, it is a reflection of improvement in economic activities, especially when we look at quarter on quarter. That is, when we compare activities in third quarter of 2022 compared to second quarter in 2022. So we have about 9.68% increase. However, if we compare to the previous year, it was not as high as that. So it is an improvement in economic activities. So that is what we see. And majorly we have two major sectors in terms of oil sector and the non-oil sector. The non-oil sector is the major driver of the improvement that we saw, because the economic activity improved in the non-oil sector by 4.27% in real terms. But in the non-oil sector, there was a decline. We can see that average crude oil production was 1.20 million barrels per day, which was lower than 1.43 million barrels per day in the second quarter of 2022.
Yes.
Which was also lower than 1.57 million barrels per day in the third quarter, the same quarter of last year, 2021. So there was a decline in oil sector, but there was improvement in the non-oil sector, especially the communication aspect. Almost everybody we have internet, we use phone call and so on like that. So we have activities in financial services sector, we have in real estate, we have in transportation. So the non-oil sector is the major driver. And in fact, if you look at the composition of the total GDP, the contribution of the oil sector is 5.66% for the quarter three, while non-oil sector is 94.34%.
Yes.
So although the oil sector is a driver in terms of export, in terms of earnings of it, because of the export in order to end what is called a foreign exchange. So maybe I should stop there.
Okay, that's a good one. This will be the first time since the COVID pandemic that the economy has slowed, as we like to say. What do you make of it? Does this mean that the post-COVID induced growth has stopped, or what do you think?
Yes, there was improvement in economic activity, but at a slower pace, because during the period of COVID, we had recession. Yes. So after recession, economic activities began, but slowly, because there was a popular saying that it is easier to destroy than to rebuild. Yes. So if a building, you can collapse a building in one day, but you cannot rebuild the building in one day. Yes. So activities that have slowed down, apart from the COVID, we have our own peculiar reasons, insurgency, insecurity, they also contributed to the slowdown in economic activities. So they started picking up gradually after the COVID. So that is why when you look at that report that the National Bureau of Statistics put, they call it base effect of a recession. So we saw improvement, but the improvement was lower to the period before the COVID or the recession period. So that is what I can see out of it.
All right, now looking at the current realities, we have things like the flood, higher inflation, multidimensional poverty report that was released recently. What does this mean for the country moving forward?
Yes, they are all factors that are they are constraints and challenges to rapid growth in economic activities. For instance, when you look at the issue of inflation, inflation is caused by several factors. Part of it, which will come up in the next report of inflation figure in December for November,
yes.
It will affect food prices because we are aware and we read and we also saw that some farms were flooded and the farm products were swept away, destroyed. So this one will reduce availability of food in the market, and of course prices will rise. And among the basket of CPI, Consumer Price Index, yes, food items constitute a larger portion of it. And again, you know that as we speak, we are still battling with the issue of unstable exchange rates, which also bring about, of course, you know that the naira has been, the value of the naira has dropped significantly. Even though in the parallel market you can see some movement in the dollar, maybe some days you will see 700, maybe 720 naira per dollar or thereabout. All those ones are still high. What it does is that it makes imported items, the price to be extremely high, so it will add up to inflation. So we should not be pessimistic. We should not be pessimistic, even though we know they are part of the constraints that will impede economic activity in the country. But we should not be pessimistic.
All right.
Over time, we will overcome them.
Yes. Now, you mentioned earlier that the sector is into two, the oil sector and the non-oil sector.
Yes.
Looking at the oil sector now, the oil production, Nigeria's oil production took a hit in the third quarter, accounting for about 5.66%, contributing to the real-time GDP. What does this mean going forward for oil? For the oil brings in at least 80% of our foreign exchange earnings. So what does this mean now? The fact that it has contributed is reducing almost every quarter now. I think it was around 6 or 7% in the last quarter, but now it's around 5%. What do you make of this?
5.66% now.
Yes.
Yes, we know that in the third quarter, as we have seen that the issue of crude oil, production that declined because of they used to inform us of crude oil thefts, stoppage of production activity. I think federal government had contracted surveillance and other measures to some private organization in order to reduce the instance of crude oil, because you can see that I think around September we had a decline of a daily production of about 900,000, which is less than 1 million.
1 million, yes.
So, but it has improved now a little above 1 million. So what it means is that as this, it has now been known to every Tom, Dick, and Harry in the country that the major driver of our economy is crude oil, especially in terms of foreign exchange earnings, and that the surveillance contract that have been awarded, so many revelations are coming around. We have gradually seen improvement in the production. So I believe and I expect that the production in this quarter, the last quarter of the year, is expected to be higher than what we witnessed in the third quarter.
Okay.
So the implication is that it will affect positively our earnings in terms of crude oil export earnings. So that is the implication. It's expected to be positive for us. That is all things being equal.
All right. Now, we know that the oil sector, as the oil sector was receding, the non-oil sector was booming. And one of the key sectors that has been driving this is the ICT sector. It has become a dominant force for the country. Looking at this, what are some of the things that the government now should now be putting in place? Looking at, because one thing that majority of us cannot do without using is technology. Now, this sector has continued to improve. It has now it contributes more to the GDP than oil. What do you make of this? What should the government be doing looking forward?
Okay, yes, the sector is contributing, is growing, because it's about knowledge-based sector. It's knowledge, so it's about skill sector. So there is need to improve the support and the education, improve the education, awareness, skill, support, people, high-tech individuals, youths. You can see that many of our youths, especially the financial services, they were moving out of the country where they can get higher package in terms of pay. So there's incentives to the sector to attract talents, so that people that have skills, they can begin to continue to improve that sector. And you know, it employs a lot. When you talk of ICT, what you and I are doing now is about ICT.
Yes.
It's about information communication.
Yes.
Because from the distance you are, from the distance I am, we are not, we are
not in physical proximity. Yes.
We are communicating. Are you following?
I'm following you. Please continue.
So there is need for incentive to grow skills in that sector, attract youths to the sector. In the universities, colleges, polytechnics, put more funding to the research to encourage people, so that people will know that once they get this kind of skill, they have something tangible to offer, which can give them tangible earnings. And of course, it will impact positively on the economy of the country.
Thank you very much for that. Now, still on the non-oil sector, we also saw improvements in the agricultural sector. But one thing that we've noticed is this, recently with the flood and insecurity in many parts of the country, what does this bode for the agricultural sector, especially in this Q4 that we are now?
We expect it to be a bit lower. Yes, it should be a bit lower. That is the reality on ground. But the rural communities where agricultural activities are taking place, if you look at Bayelsa ravaged with flood,
yes,
and if you look at some other parts of the country, even Benue, where agricultural activities take place,
yes,
the issue of, apart from flood, the issue of farmers' others conflict are still persisting.
yes.
So they still affect crop production. And even the livestock production, which is also, agriculture is not only crop production.
Of course, there are other.
Even the livestock production, poultry farmers, are trying. The cost of maize is on the high side. The cost of soybean, the cost of importing what they added as feed additive drugs and so on. So prices, if you look at price of egg, on the high side. So all this one, many poultry farmers have closed shop, so they will surely impact negatively. So what is necessary is for government to give incentive to support, because this sector employ a lot. So incentives, government, not only at the federal level, at state and the local government level, needs to give incentives. One, about the issue of flood, they should find a way to get relief to communities, find a way to deflood the area. Then it is support for the livestock farmers.
All right.
So that is the start to move out.
Now, let's also look at one key sector there now. That's the manufacturing sector. The manufacturing sector is one of the sectors that the federal government is looking at majorly. But one thing it did that it's receded, the growth slowed in the third quarter of the year. This is as these businesses that make up the manufacturing sector are faced with things like heavy taxation, energy costs, so many issues, and they've lamented it to the federal government. Even on this show, we've always looked at it. We looked at it earlier this week. Now, what should be in place now? Looking at that, the manufacturing sector is playing a very, very important role. What then now should the government be doing now for this sector? Because it dropped, and it contributes. It's one of the sectors that contributes heavily, but is witnessing a drop in growth. Now, what should the government? What should be done? So let's take this as the final question. Yes.
Yes, the manufacturing sector is the productive sector of the economy. If you look at the services sector, those are the consumption sector. So you have mentioned the factors that brought about that impede or hamper growth of the manufacturing sector. You talk about energy costs, which we are witnessing. You talk about multiplicity of taxation, which we are witnessing from the federal government to the state government to the local government. So as we are mentioning those factors, the onus is on government to find a way to ameliorate all this multiplicity of taxes. That's number one. Then the issue of energy costs. Diesel is there, fuel is there. In terms of so many what's it called? So many brand of petroleum products that they use. In terms of electricity, those are the things that drive. Those are the things that drive the cost element. So government needs to find a way out. You know, the energy cost especially is not as a speak. You know, it is not.
Sir.
Sir. It is not going to be end immediately.
Sir, let's Mr. Isaac.
Okay.
Yeah, let's hold it here. We want to go on a short break. When we come back, we'll look at this and then we'll wrap it up.
All right.
So we'll come back after this short break.
As you see.
Welcome back. I was still speaking with Isaac Adejumo, Head of Investment, Skyview Capital, which is a stockbroking and asset management firm. So I'll let you land on the thought you were making before we went on that short break.
Okay. So I was on the issue of energy costs.
Yes.
We know that the major reason is because we are not refining our own petroleum products. We are importing. And we know that as we speak, there is scarcity of foreign currency, especially the major one, which is the US dollar. There is problem of accessing the dollar, even at both the so-called official rate and the parallel market rate. So these are the major driver of the high costs of the petroleum products, and also added to the cost for those manufacturers that import raw materials. So all these issues, they are perennial issues that we are facing as a country. Government is aware, and what to do is not a day job, it is a process. As long as we are not exporting sufficient, we are not producing and exporting sufficient, in terms of our crude oil, which is the major source, as we speak, of our foreign exchange earning. In the year past, we used to, even the OPEC quota for us was 1.8 million barrels per day.
Yes.
Currently, we are doing 1.2 million. Look at the gap. So, as long as we are not having sufficient production to drive the so-called foreign currency inflow, the dollar scarcity will persist.
Well, thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. This is a very good place to end the conversation. We thank you very much for coming on the show today.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Moving on now. Fuel queues are back, and with it are complaints of continued hardship. We'll be bringing back Charles Fakroa to help us look at the causes and the continued effects. Please stay tuned.